This happens when you finally choose yourself first. The cost of self-forgetfulness. What happens when you stop living to please others and start honoring your own truth? This video is not just a message, it's a moment of recognition. You've spent years wearing masks, fulfilling roles, and pushing aside your needs for the comfort of others. But now something inside you is shifting. In this poetic and deeply honest exploration, we walk together through the silent rebellion of choosing yourself first. From the weight of expectations to the rediscovery of your voice, you'll be guided back to the center of who you truly are. This isn't about ego, it's about essence. Stay with us, because what you're about to feel might not only awaken you, it might change everything. A quiet act when you put yourself first. Have you ever wondered what really happens when you finally decide to put yourself first? Not as an act of rebellion, not out of anger, but in a quiet, grounded way. Because something deep inside tells you it is time. For so long, you've been living for others, saying yes when you meant no, smiling when your heart was breaking, showing up for everything but yourself. And somewhere along the way, a truth begins to rise, a soft but persistent voice that says this isn't living. Choosing yourself doesn't feel heroic at first. In fact, it often feels wrong. Guilt creeps in wearing the mask of morality. We've been taught that self-sacrifice equals virtue, that love means putting everyone before us. But what if that belief is what's slowly breaking us? The act of putting yourself first is not loud. It does not seek applause. It often begins in silence, in a pause, in a breath, in a simple moment. When you say, I can't keep doing this, that moment becomes a spark. But the world does not welcome your awakening with open arms. People start to notice the shift. You are no longer so easy to access. You begin to set boundaries. You say no, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. And suddenly you become the problem. They ask what happened to you. Why have you changed? This discomfort is not proof that you're wrong. It's a sign you're breaking free. Because when you choose yourself, you disturb the patterns that once kept you small. And in that disturbance, you begin to awaken. Not just to your needs, but to your truth. To put yourself first is not selfish. It is the first step in remembering who you are. Awakening after the crisis. Most awakenings do not begin with clarity. They begin with collapse. The moment when everything you have built starts to feel hollow. You go to work, fulfill obligations, smile at the right moments, but something inside is missing. It is not a loud scream. It is a quiet ache, a slow, persistent erosion of meaning. You start asking questions you never dared to ask. What am I doing this for? Why do I feel so disconnected from my own life? Crisis often arrives as a breakdown, but it is not a failure. It is a doorway. The system that once made you feel secure starts to fall apart, and in its ruins lies your opportunity. You begin to see how much of your life was built around pleasing others, around survival rather than truth. The roles you played, the identity you wore, even the dreams you chased, suddenly none of it feels real anymore. At first, this awareness hurts. You try to hold on to what you know. You tell yourself it is just a phase, that things will go back to normal. But deep down, you already know. Normal is what numbed you. Normal is what buried you. The moment you realize that the crisis is not your enemy, but your invitation, something shifts. Awakening does not come with certainty. It comes with chaos. But within that chaos is your first taste of honesty. The crisis is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to show you what you have outgrown. The life that once fit no longer holds who you are becoming. And though the pain is sharp, it is not final. It is a signal you are no longer asleep. You are beginning to remember. The portrait of a shaped self. From the moment we are born, we begin to adapt. We learn that approval brings comfort and disapproval brings pain. As children, we mold ourselves to fit into the roles that earn us love. We become obedient, agreeable, quiet, helpful. We learn to silence our own voice if it threatens the acceptance we crave. This shaping does not happen all at once. It is slow and subtle. It feels like survival, and in many ways it is. By the time we reach adulthood, much of who we think we are has been constructed through repetition. We have become the result of expectations. Family, school, society. We follow rules, meet demands, and play our parts. We wear a mask so well that even we forget we are wearing one. The persona becomes our identity. But what happens when the mask begins to crack? When the smile you wear feels like a weight, when the life you live feels like a script you no longer believe in, you start to feel the tension between who you are and who you pretend to be. It is uncomfortable, confusing, and often frightening, because behind the shaped self is an unknown self, and we are not taught how to meet that version. Society rewards the shaped self. It praises conformity, predictability, and performance. But deep inside, the cost begins to surface. Exhaustion, numbness, a quiet desperation. You do everything right, yet feel deeply wrong, because the life that fits the persona may never fit the soul. This realization is not the end. It is the beginning. The moment you stop asking how to be liked and start asking who you are beneath the layers, the shaped self is not your enemy. It was your survival. But now you are ready for something more than survival. You are ready to live. Facing the shadow. There's a stranger within me. When you begin to strip away the roles you were taught to play, you encounter something unexpected. Beneath the persona lies the shadow, the parts of yourself you were told to hide, the anger you swallowed, the sadness you buried, the fears you pretended not to feel. These are not flaws. They are the rejected truths of your being. The stranger within you is not a monster. It is a part of you that never had the chance to speak. Facing the shadow is not comfortable. It does not happen in one dramatic moment. It happens in small, unsettling realizations. You react too strongly to a comment. You feel rage at something trivial. You catch yourself sabotaging joy. These moments are clues. They are not proof you are broken. They are evidence that a forgotten part of you is asking to be seen. Most of us were never taught how to meet our shadow. We were taught to fear it, suppress it, judge it. But Carl Jung believed that the shadow is the seat of transformation, not by fighting it, but by integrating it. When you face your shadow with compassion instead of shame, you begin to reclaim yourself. You stop trying to be perfect and start becoming whole. The process is messy. The shadow will challenge your image of yourself. It will confront your illusions. But in doing so, it will free you. You will begin to act from truth rather than from fear. And that is when real strength emerges. To face the shadow is not to destroy the darkness. It is to walk into it with your eyes open, to listen, to learn, and to say to the parts of you that were never loved, I see you now. You belong. You are mine. The defining question, who am I living for? After the shadow begins to rise, a deeper silence enters. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of reckoning. You find yourself standing at a crossroads, not on a map, but within your own life. And at the center of it is a question that refuses to be ignored. Who am I really living for? This question does not arrive gently. It crashes through routine, disrupts certainty, and challenges every assumption you have made about success, loyalty, and love. You look back and realize how much of your life has been shaped by what others needed you to be. The responsible one, the helper, the one who never says no. At first, answering the question feels impossible. Because to answer honestly, you must dismantle years of self-protection. You must admit that many of your choices were made from fear, not freedom. And yet, as painful as this is, it is also the beginning of clarity. To ask who you are living for is not selfish. It is sacred. It means you are no longer willing to be a ghost in your own life. It means you are ready to live not in reaction to others, but in alignment with your soul. This shift is subtle at first. You begin to notice what drains you. You feel a new resistance to obligations that once defined you. You catch yourself pausing before agreeing. You start to listen to the voice you once silenced. It is not about abandoning responsibility. It is about redefining it. Responsibility to your own truth, to your own peace, and slowly the weight of everyone else's expectations begins to lift. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped living for applause. You started living for meaning. When you stop being the always available one, there comes a moment when you no longer say yes by default. You stop responding instantly. You take longer to reply. You no longer stretch yourself thin to meet everyone's needs. At first, it feels wrong. You've been the reliable one for so long, the one who shows up, the one who says yes without hesitation. People are used to that version of you. So when you begin to shift, their discomfort is immediate. They ask what happened. They say you've changed. And they're right. You have. But the change didn't come from resentment. It came from exhaustion, from years of silencing your own needs in the name of peace, from carrying responsibilities that were never truly yours to hold. This is where resistance surfaces. The people who benefited from your availability begin to question you. They call you distant, cold, selfish, but they are not grieving your presence. They are grieving their access to your energy without boundaries. In this stage, you will be tempted to explain yourself, to justify, to soften your no. But true growth asks for clarity, not compromise. You are not responsible for others' discomfort when you begin honoring yourself. This shift is not about shutting people out. It's about showing up in ways that don't destroy you. You still care. You still love. But now you also choose yourself. You choose rest. You choose silence when needed. And slowly you begin to feel what it's like to belong to yourself. You realize you don't have to earn your worth through exhaustion. That love is not about constant availability. It's about presence. And the first person who deserves your presence fully and gently is you. The silence of the new self. After you stop being who the world expects, a deep silence follows. Not just around you, but within you. The noise of obligations quiets. The voices of others fade. You are left with yourself. And at first that feels like emptiness. You have spent so long defining yourself through service, approval, and performance that when it is stripped away, what remains feels unfamiliar. This silence is not a punishment. It is a space, a sacred pause between what you used to be and who you are becoming. But it does not feel sacred at first. It feels lonely. The friends who needed your compliance may drift away. The comfort of routine dissolves. You might wonder if you made a mistake. But in this emptiness, something begins to shift. You hear a voice you forgot. You start to ask what you actually want. You notice what brings you peace. Slowly you begin to rebuild, not from expectation, but from truth. The silence of the new self is where healing begins. It is where you learn that your value is not in how much you give, but in how much you are willing to be real. In this space, your emotions rise without being rushed. You start to feel what was once buried, and though it may hurt, it is honest. This part of the journey is not about finding answers. It is about learning to be with yourself without judgment, to sit in the quiet without needing to fill it, to allow the discomfort, because the silence is not empty. It is full of everything you are becoming. Loss is not the enemy. It is the naked truth. When you begin to change, some people disappear, not because you hurt them, but because your growth disrupts the dynamic they depended on. You are no longer the constant giver, the one who absorbs, adjusts, and agrees. You are no longer available in the same way, and that shift threatens their comfort. So they pull away, or worse, they blame you for evolving. At first, these losses feel like betrayals. You wonder if you were wrong to grow. You question your own integrity. But in time, you realize something painful and freeing. Some relationships were not built on love, but on convenience. They survived as long as you played your part. When you stop playing, they stop showing up. This truth is sharp. It cuts through illusion, but it also reveals the depth of your awakening. You are no longer living to maintain connection at the cost of your authenticity. You are choosing to be real, even if it means being alone for a while. This is what grief looks like in transformation. Not just sadness, but clarity. A deep mourning for the illusions you once called love. You begin to see which bonds were mutual and which ones were conditional. And though it hurts, it liberates. You stop chasing approval. You stop trying to explain yourself. And in that release, you reclaim your peace. What remains are the people who respect your truth, not just your role. People who stay, not because of what you give, but because of who you are. Loss is not the enemy. It is the necessary unraveling of what was never meant to stay. And in its place, space opens for truth, for wholeness, for you. Living as an art, don't hide from the world. After loss and solitude, a new challenge appears. How do you return to the world without losing yourself again? You have learned to protect your energy, to honor your truth, to set boundaries. But now life invites you to engage, to connect, to step back into relationships, work, and community, this time without pretending. It may feel safer to stay distant. Isolation becomes a refuge. You no longer wish to shrink, so you hide. But hiding is not healing. True healing is the ability to be seen and still remain whole. You are not meant to disappear. You are meant to exist differently. Living with authenticity is not about constant confrontation. It is about alignment, choosing what nourishes you, saying yes only when you mean it, saying no without guilt, letting people see your truth even when it's messy. That is the art of living. Not perfection, but presence. You begin to realize that being yourself does not mean rejecting others. It means engaging without self-betrayal. It means showing up without abandoning your values. The fear of judgment fades because you no longer need approval to feel real. You give yourself permission to belong without bending. The world might not understand this new version of you, and that's okay. Your life is not a performance. It is a home you build from the inside out. You are not here to play a part. You are here to live a life that reflects your soul. Do not hide from the world. Meet it with your truth. And if your truth shakes the ground, let it. That is how real life begins. The end of pretense, the true beginning. There comes a moment when pretending no longer works. You can no longer smile through discomfort or agree to stay accepted. The masks you wore begin to fall away, not in anger, but in quiet exhaustion. You simply don't have the strength to be someone you are not. And in that moment, something honest begins. This is not the beginning the world celebrates. There are no cheers, no spotlight, but inside it is revolutionary. You are no longer building your life around being liked. You are building it around being real. It is not easy. The old patterns still whisper. The fear of rejection still lingers, but something stronger now lives inside you, the refusal to abandon yourself again. You start to reclaim the parts you lost, the joy you postponed, the dreams you buried, the voice you silenced. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every time you say what you really feel, every time you act from your truth, you return to yourself. Others might not understand this shift. Some will resist it. They may want the old version of you, one who fit neatly into their comfort. But that version no longer exists. And trying to revive it would mean killing something new. The end of pretense is not a loss. It is a return to your body, to your breath, to your knowing. You do not have to perform to be loved. You do not have to shrink to be accepted. Your truth may not be loud, but it is steady. And from that steadiness, a new life begins to grow. Not perfect, not polished, but yours, entirely and finally yours. Where emotions are held, the art of self-healing. Healing is not a single moment. It is a slow, tender process of returning to yourself. After you stop pretending, after you stop performing, you begin to feel, truly feel, emotions that were buried under years of survival begin to surface. Grief you never allowed. Anger you suppressed. Sadness you ignored. They all rise not to harm you, but to be heard. This is where healing begins. Not by fixing emotions, but by holding them. By sitting with them without judgment. By learning to feel without running, without numbing. Most of us were taught to avoid pain, to stay strong, to move on quickly. But real strength is the ability to breathe through discomfort. To say this hurts, and I will still stay with it myself. In this space, tears become sacred. Silence becomes medicine. You start to understand that emotions are not problems. They are signals, invitations, each one telling you something real about your needs, your boundaries, your history. And when you listen, something shifts. You no longer push yourself to be okay. You give yourself permission to not be okay. Healing is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to who you were before you were told to be someone else, before the world asked you to hide. Self-healing is not selfish. It is necessary, because only when you tend to your own wounds with compassion can you show up in the world with true presence. This is the art of self-healing, not fixing, not rushing, just being with what is until it softens, until it integrates, until it becomes part of you, no longer in pain but in peace. Igniting inner strength. You don't need to be saved. There is a point in healing where you stop waiting for someone to understand you, waiting for the apology, waiting for the world to give you permission to move forward. And in that moment, something changes. You realize you are not broken. You are not helpless. You do not need to be rescued. What you need is to remember your own power. This is the turning point, the shift from survival to self-leadership, from waiting to choosing, from hoping to becoming. You begin to see that strength is not about being hard. It is about being anchored, knowing who you are, even when the world forgets, holding your ground, not to fight others, but to stay with yourself. Inner strength is quiet. It does not boast. It does not demand attention. It lives in small moments, in saying no when it matters, in staying present when fear rises, in trusting your path even when no one else sees it. You no longer live for validation. You live for alignment. This is where resilience is born, not in avoidance but in presence, not in pretending to be fine but in meeting each day with honesty. You may still fall, you may still ache, but now you rise from within, not waiting for a hand to pull you up. You become the one who stands for yourself. You don't need to be saved. You need to be seen by yourself. And when you see yourself clearly, you begin to walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. With a knowing that no matter what happens, you are already enough. Rediscovering life's meaning. Not in achievements, but in truth. At the end of all the shedding, silence, healing, and rediscovery, a deeper question rises. What does it all mean? If you are no longer chasing success to be worthy, no longer performing for love, no longer pretending to belong, then what remains? The answer doesn't arrive as a grand revelation. It comes quietly in the most ordinary moments, in a morning light that softens your breath, in a conversation that asks nothing of you, in a decision that aligns with your heart, not your fear. Meaning is not a destination. It is a relationship between your inner world and the way you move through the outer one. It's not found in a title, a milestone, or a grand purpose imposed by others. It is found in the small, true acts of choosing presence over perfection, honesty over image connection, over control. To rediscover meaning is to return to simplicity, to recognize that being alive is not about proving anything. It is about being here, inhabiting your body, listening to your own voice, saying yes when it expands you, saying no when it costs your peace. This clarity is not loud, but it is steady. In a world that urges you to be more, faster, louder, meaning is the quiet rebellion. It is the radical act of honoring what is real. You begin to see that your life does not need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. It needs to be true. It needs to be yours. And maybe that's the whole point. Not to arrive somewhere impressive, but to return again and again to what is honest, to what is whole, to what is real. When you live from that place, even the smallest moments shine. And in that light, you finally understand you were never lost. You were only waiting to remember. Choosing yourself is not the end of a journey. It is the return to where it all begins. within you. No longer chasing, no longer hiding, no longer pretending, just living, breathing, and becoming. Every step you take from here is yours. Not to prove, but to embody. Not to impress, but to be free. And in that freedom, you don't just find yourself. You finally come home.